My dad is going into hospice next week, but he's been out of it for the last 6 months. The house he lives in with his wife and 2 adult daughters is mine. I bought it for him to live in after my mom died. He spiraled for a bit when that happened. He lost his job and he was evicted from their apartment. I bought a small house in an older, safe neighborhood for him and his dog. I'm all he has and I love him. 5 years later he met Maxine and they married 2 years later. He moved her into the house. I didn't have a problem with that. First, her daughter and then her other daughter moved in. It was not my favorite thing, but it wasn't my place to say anything. Everything was fine for a while. Then one kid decided she was scared of my dad's dog. She got her mom to convince my dad to get rid of Donnie. My dad didn't want to do this as Donnie was my mom's dog too. He was an old Jack Russell Terrier and he was about as scary as a dog-shaped rug. I took Donnie. This made Maxine and her kids angry, like my dad found a loophole or something. I would take Donnie with me whenever I came to visit. They always made a big production of it. Such a scary brute. All he did was roll around on the grass and bark at the squirrels. As I said, my dad is going into hospice this week, and I went to talk to Maxine and her daughters. I brought Donnie to say goodbye to my dad. Maxine's daughter said she was glad that she would never have to have Donnie in her house again. I was planning on telling her that as long as she paid the property taxes, maintenance and utilities, she would be welcome to live in the house as long as she wanted. She had made my dad happy and I was trying to be nice. I had my lawyer draw up an agreement that said precisely this. Her kid made me angry though. I didn't even pull it out. I just gave Maxine an ultimatum. When my dad died, she had 3 months to either kick out her daughter, sign a lease and start paying a reasonable rent, or move out entirely. She said the house was going to be hers when my dad died since they were married. I actually got great pleasure in telling her that it was mine. Not because anyone gave it to me, but because I bought it and paid for it. I gave her my lawyer's card and told her to check for herself. That was yesterday. She's been trying to call me all day today. I ended up blocking all 3 of them. But not before I heard all kinds of messages about what an idiot I was to do this to a widow and her children. Both daughters work and none of this is really my problem. I was in my 30s when my dad married her. She was never anything to me but my dad's wife, and I never bothered to learn her daughters' names. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I can only imagine your satisfaction having gotten a great deal of vicarious pleasure from hearing about her finding out the house doesn't belong to your dad. It's your property. Your intention was to care for your father. You did that with great honor and respect to even allow this woman and her kids to live there on your dime. At the same time, he can enjoy dwelling in said property. Sadly, it seems that time has come to an end, and now it is just that, a property that you own to do with as you wish at your disposal. Do not let this person extort your kindness as a weakness because they do not want to do anything to elevate their own position in life but instead to feed off someone else's. Yeah, wow, separating dad from the family dog was just cruel. Maxine's daughter's comment about being glad about never seeing the dog again comes off to me like she's glad that your dad is dying so that she doesn't have to see the dog. Even if she didn't mean it in that harsh way, she showed zero awareness when it came to your dad's relationship with the dog. She showed no remorse in forcing the dog out of your father's home. It would help if you looked up eviction laws in your state, making sure you gave thorough notice, etc. I foresee an attempt at squatting. Exactly. They will either attempt to squat or completely destroy the place. You've given Maxine and her daughters 3+ months' notice. That's more than fair. You didn't owe Maxine basically a life estate on the home. Everyone hits a tipping point. You hit yours. You owe these people nothing. They clearly never built a relationship with you. They clearly put their own desires above your dad's. I hope you will talk to a lawyer about evicting them ASAP. My daughter, kindergartner, is having a birthday later this month. We have a trip coming up, so we decided to have a birthday party last Saturday instead. When we got home after the party, we helped our daughter open her gifts. The only ones she didn't open were the ones we realized were jewelry or clothing. She doesn't care about those, only the toys, which my husband and I opened without her. Those were primarily gifted by family members. The jewelry department mainly consisted of necklaces and bracelets. The sole exception was a pair of earrings my father and his wife gifted. My daughter's ears aren't pierced. We didn't pierce them when she was born, nor do we intend to do so anytime soon. We want to let her decide whether she wants to, and she's never expressed any interest. So my husband and I knew we'd be exchanging the earrings. Usually we don't tell people we're exchanging a gift they bought for us. This time is different. My stepmother has bugged me about piercing my daughter's ears since she was born. There's always a different reason why. First, it was because people wouldn't know she was a girl if we didn't. Then it turned to she'll get jealous of her friends and so on. But she always makes the point that girls need to have their ears pierced. She brings it up almost every time we see her. My father usually doesn't comment on it but has backed her up several times. Also, my stepmother never complained about my older son's appearance, so I know this is rooted in misogyny. When my father called us the next day to ask what we thought of the earrings, I told him they looked nice. My stepmother joined in and asked, "So you're getting her ears pierced?" I tried to dodge the question, but she later asked it again, so I told them no. I looked at the store's website and found a matching necklace for which we'll exchange the earrings. There's a price difference, but I'll cover it. Well, they weren't happy. Apparently, my stepmother started crying. My father told me off for thinking about exchanging a thoughtful gift he bought for his granddaughter and said it was wrong of me to dismiss my stepmother's opinions like that. In return, I told him I couldn't take her insistence anymore and that she needed to stop obsessing over my daughter's ears. It escalated into a fight. My husband, while 100% on my side otherwise, thinks I didn't need to tell them. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Honestly, I never let them babysit your daughter unsupervised because of that level of insistence. Your stepmother pushed. This is a more than reasonable boundary. No, you will not be piercing your daughter's ears. It wasn't a gift, it was an attempted manipulation. Even if it were his side of the family, your husband would be out of line here. This is an example of needing to tell them that the gift was inappropriate, because they knew full well it was. It's not their kid, so they don't get to decide anything about parenting it. Get your stepmother a gift she can't use and see how she likes it. Tell her you think she needs to take up scuba diving and get her a dive mask. All gifts going forward are things she can't use, and when she questions it, you can tell her that it's a thoughtful gift and that you've decided she needs to get into scuba diving. LOL, what a joke. How are pierced earrings for someone without pierced ears a thoughtful gift? You weren't being rude, you were rejecting rudeness. They jammed their foot in your closing door like a pushy salesman who couldn't accept no for an answer. You are removing the foot so the door can be closed. My wife Kate, 27, and I, 29 male, host an Oscar watch party at our house every year. We've been doing that since we moved in together 5 years ago. We dress nicely, place bets on the winners, and eat popcorn. It's a fun tradition that many of our friends look forward to every year. One of those people is Rick, 28 male, a friend of mine from college. My wife loves whiskey. Shortly before last year's party, my father-in-law gave her a bottle of Macallan. He said he'd spent $175 on it. Kate gave birth to our first child in 2022 and was still breastfeeding last year, so she decided to save the bottle for after our son had weaned. During last year's watch party, Rick got wasted. While reaching for something else in our liquor cabinet, he accidentally dropped and broke the bottle. He apologized profusely once he'd sobered up. I was angry, but the whiskey was Kate's and she forgave him, so I decided to drop the subject. A couple of weeks after that, we asked Rick how he planned on replacing the bottle. He was shocked at our question and told us he didn't intend to. Rick's been having money problems for a while and struggles to pay his rent. He said that since we knew about his condition, it was unreasonable of us to expect him to pay for a $175 bottle of whiskey. I told Rick he had until this year's Oscar party, which was months away at the time, to save up for a new bottle. If he didn't, he wouldn't be welcome at our place for the party. At the time, he agreed. Throughout the year, I asked him about the savings several times. He always told me he was close to the goal. Last week, I asked Rick about it again. He confessed he hadn't saved any money for the bottle, so I kept my promise and uninvited him from the party. Rick and his girlfriend, who frequently join us at our parties, are now angry at me for uninviting him over an intoxicated mistake. They also insist I'm being unsympathetic and entitled by expecting Rick to pay for a new bottle. Kate's on my side but is worried we're being too harsh. I don't think we are, but I'm starting to feel guilty as Sunday approaches. I have less than 2 days to sort this out. Am I the idiot? Edit, Rick was the only person at the party who got intoxicated. Many of us didn't even drink. Also, we'd selected drinks and set them on the kitchen counter. Rick went into the cabinet to look for a bottle of liquor without asking me first, and was the only person who did so. Not the idiot. Wasted or not, he broke something that a father gifted his daughter and lied about replacing it. But that being said, if you've known him for a while, and he's been a good friend all the time you've known him, I'd let it slide. Friendship is worth more than a few $100s, which was unintentionally lost. I disagree. Rick broke something in your house. He shouldn't be allowed back in until he makes amends, either by replacing the item or covering its cost. It doesn't matter that the item was a bottle of liquor or that Rick was intoxicated when he broke it. This is fundamental guest etiquette. You make it right if you break something in someone's house, accidentally, intentionally, or otherwise. Rick totally took advantage of OP's hospitality to get intoxicated and then bypassed what was out for guests and went to the liquor cabinet to find more liquor. This action is what really puts Rick into idiot territory for me. My brother-in-law, sister's husband, is one of those people who is convinced that no one is happy unless they're in a relationship. I've never been someone who has been all that concerned about finding a man or anything. If it happens, that's great. If it doesn't, I have a life I'm happy with. For the record, I, 28 female, own a successful small marketing business, a home, a car, etc. I've mistakenly allowed him to try to set me up with friends. The reoccurring issue is that men might be physically attractive, but beyond that, there's not much else going on. And brother-in-law doesn't quite get that he's hot, he has money, he's over 6 feet tall, is not the panty dropper he thinks. This past time, however, I really upset him with what happened. He introduced me to this guy, Carlos. Carlos is 6'2", went to a good school, owns his own business, etc, etc, etc. However, Carlos is a huge nerd, like geeky, nerdy Star Wars and video games nerd. His free time is spent playing games, Dungeons and Dragons nights, etc. His idea of getting dressed for a date night is jeans and a nice button-down. He hates exercise and thinks it's funny that people drink plain water. I'm just not attracted to men like this. It's not wrong to think those things, and I believe many other women would be eager to date him. Brother-in-law unleashed his frustration at me, telling me how I'm superficial and care about the wrong things, like it's vapid for me to care about someone's style or hobbies. How he offered up his hottest friends for me, and I just sneered at him like I was such a prize. I just told him to screw off. I said that I'd never asked him to set me up, and if he doesn't like it, to stop trying to hook me up with men. I accepted these dates out of curiosity and being open to what the universe brings, but I won't date someone just because they're physically attractive. I'm not some 20-year-old who thinks that a guy being 6'2" is half of the equation. My brother-in-law yelled at me, telling me that it's weird that I'm 28 and have only been in one long-term relationship, and that my clock is ticking. My sister has asked me to try to make nice with him by apologizing. I genuinely do not think I have anything to apologize for. Am I wrong? Not the idiot. I think it's weird that your brother-in-law is so obsessed with your love life that your sister wants you to apologize. A hint of misogyny as well. He sounds more bothered that you're successful on your own without a man than he is, you not wanting to date his nerdy friends. If brother-in-law can't separate his ego from you deciding not to continue a relationship with one of his friends, he needs to bow out of setting you up. You have clearly said you guys didn't have chemistry or are compatible. That happens. As long as you're not disrespectful when you end things with these guys, he has no right to be mad. And heck no to apologizing to keep the peace. Makes me wonder how many opinions your sister has to swallow to keep her relationship afloat. Oh, and he should screw right off, your clock is ticking. Is he from the 50s? That comment is entirely out of line. I don't know why people say you're judgmental. I just understood that your interests and hobbies don't align, so there's not much in common between the two of you. My husband, 26, and I, 25 female, have been married for 1.5 years. We've been together for 9, and our son is an infant. My in-laws live about an hour away in the town where we grew up. With my husband's siblings all moved out now, the house is too much space for my father-in-law and mother-in-law by themselves, so they're looking to move and have implied to my husband that they would like to live with us. He's the only son out of 5 kids. In our culture, parents often live with their son's family, and he wants to abide by that, and he's mentioned it to me. I'm conflicted, and I've told my husband everything so he knows my feelings about the topic. On the one hand, I would really love it. My mother recently passed, so it's been tough, and with the baby I could really use their support. I have a few short-term health things resulting from complications during my son's birth as well. We have the space, that wouldn't be an issue. The problem is my sister-in-law, 29, her parents' favourite. They dote on her often and can sometimes be blind to her faults. She often goes to stay with them for months on end. She just left after 6 months, when her marriage is on the rocks until she and her husband work it out. I know that if my in-laws moved in with us, they'd always have her around. especially as she frequently tells my husband how much she loves our place. I wouldn't mind it, but she's always been rather antagonistic and jealous towards me, only conveniently nice when she needs money or babysits for my nieces, toddler and kindergartner. I do feel bad, but I'm tired of her hostility and don't think that I can handle her presence around the house, especially while dealing with my grief and taking care of my son. Yesterday we were at my in-laws' place and the topic came up. I said, it'd be great, but not if you brought sister-in-law along, and tried to tactfully explain what I said above. They weren't exactly mad, but disappointed, saying that she had had a lot of difficulties in life and that we should support her. I asked if they wouldn't live with us if she couldn't come stay for long periods. They said yes, they'd consider alternate arrangements. Even though they prefer living with us, this was a deal breaker. My husband was silent throughout this whole thing, and my in-laws were pretty cold the rest of our time there too. When we got home, my husband was upset, saying that he didn't want to start a fight in front of them, but that the thing with his sister was a bridge we could have crossed later. He was like, is it really that big of a deal? To which I said, to me, yes. Since then, he seemed a bit distant, and I don't know what to do about it. My sister-in-law has also contacted me, calling me names and saying she was glad that her parents wouldn't be living with such a self-righteous witch. Didn't change my opinion of her, but seeing how hurt my husband and his parents are, I'm wondering if maybe I am the idiot here for not at least agreeing just to keep the peace. Dear Lord, not the idiot. You married and made a commitment to him, not his parents, and certainly not his older sister who can look after herself. Is he okay with all of his family moving in? And what about your needs? Was this spoken about and agreed upon by both of you before saying your wedding vows? Was it decided that you chose to take on his parents and adult siblings by marrying him? That bridge was never going to be crossed. It's apparent your husband was hoping you'd come around to this arrangement. What exactly is he angry about? That you were clear? You weren't going to house his sister? It's better to start out as you mean to go on. This is an absolutely massive imposition on you and highly disrespectful, given you just lost your own mother. The sister sounds like a nightmare, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is your house and your family. You get to be respected in your own home, and where does a 29-year-old fully grown woman get off thinking you'd house her? And her kids? No thanks, and this is a hill to die on. Also, I'd be forwarding her lovely message to your husband and her parents to explain why you don't want her to live with you.